India. This is the global economy. And with the pandemic behind us, both countries must look through beautifully made up of opportunities lost.
If we're able to get all of our kids vaccinated with this vaccine, then we will see a drastic reduction in the number of children that have diarrhea or die from diarrhea.
As the way families heard of
Good morning, Nigeria. Today, we shall discuss the role of state governments in national security. Now, for some time now, Nigeria and Nigerians are battling with some security challenges, ranging from banditry to kidnapping and insurgency, as well as criminal clashes and other forms of conflicts.
Indeed, Yusuf, and most of these challenges are happening in various states of the Federation, including the Federal Capital Territory, FCT.
But the concentration on complaints are mostly targeted at the center, and that's the federal government. Oh, Mr. President, to be specific, do you mean?
Well, right, Mugabe, it seems people usually forget that both the president and the state governors were elected and sworn in to undertake a number of responsibilities as provided in the 1999 Constitution as amended.
And as part of their constitutional responsibilities, as contained in Section 12, subsection 2b, the security and welfare of the citizens are the major purposes of government.
And going by this provision, the president is the commander-in-chief of the armed forces, while the state governors are therefore the chief security officers of their respective states, as both of them took an oath to protect lives and property of their citizens.
Well, that's true, but recently there has been hue and cry by some state governors over the emerging security challenges in their respective states, describing the situation as overwhelming, hence their resort to presidency for solution.
However, all the states' chief executives have made tremendous impact in taming security challenges in their various states by putting in place stringent measures to deal decisively with emerging security threats in their jurisdiction.
The question on the lips of many, therefore, is why are some state governors rushing to Asarok Villa to report security breaches to Mr. President, as against the, dealing with the issue headlong, despite security work being allocated to them?
And what role should the state governors play in ensuring national security? What is the level of synergy between the state governments and the security operatives deployed to their various states to ensure peace and order? Well, this is Good Morning Nigeria. I am Jumma Yusuf saying thanks for joining us as we delve into that issue this morning.
And I am Yusuf Medabo Sloan. You are welcome to the program, coming to you live on the network service of the NTA. In line with our tradition, we shall serve our complimentary segments in the course of the program. But for now, here is the morning news.
And unfortunately, Barry is not here today, so we review the papers with an eye. So let's begin with the Nation newspaper, and above the masthead, we have Why I Dumped NNPP by Shekaro. You find the details on page 4. Scores of militants killed as NAV jet hits ISWAP camp in Sambisa. Found out on page 6. Where EFCC can't probe state accounts finances. Police arrest kidnapped suspect in Benue State. Find the details on page 13 and 6. And the bold headlines we have from the Nation newspaper: Tinubu, Atiku, Obi roll out plans on economy security. With riders, Shatima, APC standard bearer and I will replicate our Lagos but no fears. Nigeria's unity, power devolution not negotiable, says PDP candidate. LP flag bearer promises to transform Nigeria to a productive economy. And going down the Nation newspaper, no work, no pay rule. NLC backs ASU on salary arrears. With rider, pay lecturers to end strike. Labour urges government. And judged by the picture of the Labour president, BOI Maxim say okay 101 billion for real sector funding. Says CBN. BOI Maxim okay 101 billion for real sector funding, says CBN. You find the details on page 6. And at the bottom plate of the Nation newspaper, World Bank spent 1 billion naira on SMS farming in Kano. NTA Nigeria rolled out 5G. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Juma, we have a couple of newspapers here. We're starting with the leadership anyway. I mean, moving on with leadership here. I have the leadership and of course Al Jazeera. So let's get started and we'll move on with the leadership newspaper here. Can we have the leadership, please? Above the masthead, we have these stories here. IGP commission on collision course over fresh police recruitment. IGP, in collision with commission here over fresh police recruitment. Now, federal government introducing vaccine to fight 50,000 diarrhea deaths annually. That's coming from the Minister of Health. Coming down a little bit down under the masthead, we have the following stories. And there were FG promises to release trapped $464 million foreign airlines funds. Details on page 7. I'm done with NNPP. Kwankwaso has humiliated me, says Shiko. Details there. And then the big story, the main story of the leadership this morning is ahead of campaign season, Atiku, Obi, Shatima, others test ground at NBA conference. You get details of that story on page 4. Just beside that we have Odinga challenges poll results in Kenya Supreme Court. That's speaking about the Kenya election that took place, last 2 weeks. Now, moving down a little, you can see the picture there of, people at the conference, NBA conference that was held yesterday. And as we move to the right, you have strike, reconsider your stand. FG tells ASU, reconsider your stand. FG tells ASU, just as Juma, talked about here, MLC's backing ASU over no work, no pay situation, which the ASU members say no resumption, no pay, no resumption. And we bottom line, we hope we get over it as soon as possible.
Of lectures.
Yes. And finally, on the leadership, we have gunmen kill hotelier, abduct friend in Kwara. Now let's switch over to to Al Jazeera Nigeria and then see what we have there on the front page of Al Jazeera Nigeria. There are some stories here, very interesting ones for that matter. We come along, you get them, and of course maybe go through them as you go out this morning. Al Jazeera Nigeria has right under the masthead of this story, Buhari congratulates Alumona, first African to win AFS award. Details on page 9. NBA conference, TO, Atiku, Obi, Tinubu declare nation's woes. Details on page 8. And moving down a little, FG ratifies convention against cybercrime, coming from Ministry of Communications there, and of course what he's been doing about cybercrime and the internet. Details of that on page 2. Ohaneze set to unveil choice for 2023 presidency, that is details on page 15. NTA strike crashes power generation to 43 megawatts, details on page 27. And down below you have this story on page 4. It says they constitute 17 committees for wires burial. On the right hand side, we have a new Lagos Airport terminal to process 14 million passengers yearly. That's talking about the new terminal at Lagos, and that's details on page 12 there. Come down to page 14, Army props Yogi Cleric's modern. And finally, on page 11, Abia APC Elders Council Chairman defects to PDP. The season is here, Jimmy.
Yeah, the season is here, and
carpeting and number,
And one interesting aspect is at the opening of the 2022 NTA annual conference in Lagos sort of set the pace for the candidates to begin to come out with their manifesto. Well, let's see how it plays out.
Yeah, it does, really. It says, from there you have 2023 is about character, competence. That's what Obi is saying.
Yes.
And then Shetima too hangs on that. And then you have, I will unite Nigerians against insecurity, bad economy, and other ills, says Atiku. And then a denies plan to hand over federal universities to states. Atiku still, and Nigerians want issue-based campaign, says Siyaga. There are so many things coming out of this. And then campaigns have come maybe just by the side, and let's move on. A lot of things are going to come out. People will be talking about the ills of the moment, the ills of yesterday, and looking for solutions. We hope and pray that these are going to be so much of a big deal for them, so that at least we won't go back and be talking about them anymore.
Well, that's about what we have on the newspaper review this morning. We'll take a break. When we return, the conversation begins. Don't go away. To begin our conversation on the role of state governments in national security, let's take this background report by Abdusalam Jibril.
There is no doubt that insecurity in Nigeria is a major challenge. In several states across the country, crimes are perpetrated by pirates, oil bunkerers, and pipeline vandals in the coastal states. The menace of bandits remains a threat in the northern parts of the country. The Boko Haram insurgency and the Islamic State in West African province ISWAP has also become a bane in the region, while kidnappings is now widespread. This present state of insecurity has prompted interrogation of the role of state governors as chief security officers of their respective states. Some experts have asked why governors are complaining about the inability to secure their states despite being chief executives of the states. They note that the federal government has been overstretched in the fight against insecurity and shouldn't be left to it alone. The experts maintain that it is dangerous to leave all matters of security at the doorsteps of the federal government. Other analysts decry the ballooning security votes allocated to all the 36 state governors even as the country's security challenge worsens. They stress the need for state governments to do more towards minimizing security threats in their states. How can state governors contribute towards national security? Are they effectively deploying the statutory security votes allocated to them to fight insecurity in their respective states? These and more will be the focus as guests on the program speak to the role of state governors in national security shortly.
And joining us in the studio is His Excellency Alhaji Yahya Bello, the Executive Governor of Kogi State. Very much glad to have you from Good Morning Nigeria this morning.
Good morning,
And thank you for having me in your studio today.
Your first visit to our studio.
My first visit in this particular studio, not NTA. And thanks for the privilege. And good morning, viewers across the world. Okay. Also in the studio to discuss this topic is Dr. Kabir Adami, security risk management expert, very well-known face on this program. You're welcome, Kabir.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
Also joining us from our Jos studio is Brigadier General John Temlong, First Commander, Multinational Joint Task Force, former President of Alumni Association of National Defense College and Security Consultant. As usual, you're welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Nigeria.
Thank you so much, and then welcome once again, gentlemen. We're discussing the role of state governors in national security, and I believe all of us are conversant with why we should be doing that at this material time in our history, talking about how insecurity is, ravaging and bedeviling us, and then the uneasiness we find ourselves in every other part of this country. Let's first of all establish the premise and give the framework for the discussion. What's the role of state governance in national security?
Thank you very much once again. Let's start from the constitutional provision on security. Currently, security is in the exclusive list, and so that means the federal government more or less has overriding responsibility constitutionally for security. But there are what I would call a lacuna within the constitution, in the sense that the same constitution invariably allows for the provision of security votes, which the governors get. On the other hand, the governors are also the chairmen of their state security council. They supervise or sit as chairmen of their various state security councils. Thirdly, they are constitutionally recognized leaders. They lead in terms of the provision of everything that is required in their state, including security, which, if you go by section 14, section 2 of the constitution, is actually the primary role of governance. So to that extent, governors have a primary role in the provision of security, despite this constitutional lacuna. And I think in recognition of that role, the governors last year, precisely in July, launched what they call the Peace and Inclusive Security Initiative, PISI, which is being supported by some international development partners. And to that extent, they establish a desk on peace and security within the Governors Forum. So yes, there is a recognition. Now, we can also, perhaps in the course of the conversation, talk about the various strategies by different states. If we use Lagos as an example, Lagos has set up a security trust fund, which is managed as an independent, autonomous, not profit-oriented, but privately managed company.
We'll talk about this, as you said, much let's hear from Tim Lawrence, at least let's see, get his views too on this very banal, question, talking about the role of governance in the national security. What would you add, Tim Long, on what Kabir said before we get down to His Excellency, and then maybe hear much more about these roles?
Well, thank you very much, Camilo. I think the important thing to note is that the states are the federating units of this federation. And each of the states have a chief executive. And that chief executive has sworn to uphold and defend the Constitution. And the primary role of governors, as he said, in the Constitution, is to provide for the security and welfare of the citizens. Now, to that extent, security in itself is something that is tangible. It is not something that you cannot feel or sense, you know it. And security does not just involve hard elements or the hard power. That means the kinetic side of security. Security itself has very many stratas. For example, the state governors are in charge of town planning. And town planning in itself is a national security infrastructure. Today, if you go to most of our towns, even the state capitals, if you move outside the center, there are slums. And these slums are the biggest refuge for the hoodlums and criminals that stay in the society. They are contiguous to the so-called GRAs that you have, and from there they have easy access to come in. You need to have towns that are properly planned, and these are the exclusive responsibility of the government, so that the security itself, when you call the security people, they should be able to using a Google map, locate where you want them to go within the shortest minimum time. There are places that you build houses on top of roads, stewards roads, and the rest. The other aspect is that motor parks are also national security infrastructure. These are the responsibility of the government and the local, state and local government. These are probable areas where all these criminals move and are transported in. The mode of transportation, even in the states, when I was coming here today, you will see vehicles parked on the road trying to pick people, not colored and the rest. And many kidnappers have carried innocent people like that to the kidnappers' den, because these vehicles are not registered, they are not numbered, they are not colored. If you go to London today, you know that the London taxis have been there for how many years. In fact, as you enter, the driver will tell you, look at my number and the rest. With that number, they will even know the driver and who is driving. These are also national security infrastructure that are not being done. And when we talk of the all of society approach and all of government approach, the governors play a very key and fundamental role to all these things. So the important thing is that the governors must be able to lay out the national security infrastructure that will be used to detect and fight crimes. If you don't lay out this national security infrastructure, then it's going to be very difficult. The other aspect is that mobilizing the citizens in terms of security awareness is a responsibility of the governors and the local governments. The local governments are under the governors. And so when you talk of security awareness and what the responsibility of the citizens are, is not that of the federal government. The federal government lays out the policy in broad, as enunciated in the National Security Strategy, the National Defense Policy, and the National Counterterrorism Strategy, and recently the doctrine that has been laid out to fight terrorism. So all these ones are supposed to be domesticated by the governors so that it will go down the line, because the federal government cannot sit down and do everything. Fortunately, the instrument of state policies are deployed even in the states. So you have the military, the police, the DSS, and the paramilitary forces. They are all deployed in the states. And the state governors, as chief security officers, are entitled to hold security council meetings, which are chaired by them. And it is from there that they aggregate all the intelligence that is coming out from the states, within the states, and they come up with what they need and what to do. And the decision is taken there collectively, and instructions are given out to the elements of national power that should be able to do what it is, or the instrument of power policy that should carry out that. So these are the responsibilities of the governors. And if you go back to the Sir William Commission report in 1958, it lays out, it is that report that actually amalgamated and made the police a federal police. Because going towards independence, the minorities cried to the Her Majesty's government that they were afraid, their fears are that the police will be used as an instrument of suppression to them by the major tribes. and that led to Her Majesty's government setting up the Sir Willing Commission report committee in 1957, and they turned in their report in 1958, which recommended that the federal government should be federal, and in that way it recommended too that the states should share the burden, or the regions should share the burden of financing the police, because after all they are keeping peace for them in their communities or in their regions. So even now, when people say that the states are sharing the burden, it is called, they are supposed to do so because it has a foundation in the instrument that make the police a federal police. So the important thing is that they must contribute to the security of their states. They must contribute to resources that are required to do that, and they have to get their people, their citizens galvanized. They have to lay out the national security infrastructure that are available, that are required for the security agencies to fight the crimes in their locations. So to that extent, they have a fundamental role, and I think this is one of the most important Good Morning Nigeria are doing on security, getting those who are effectively involved to be able to do what they're supposed to do. Thank you very much.
Indeed, Director Young, and that is actually why we're here today, to bring to the fore the insecurities in the country and how state governors are tackling it. Let's now come to the governor of Kogi State, Bello. Security threat is no doubt a cause of concern all around the world. It could be economic, it could be social, and at times natural disasters can be security threats. It challenges a nation's power and disrupts the life of the citizenry. And one of the core responsibility of national security is identifying these potential dangers and equipping for the right response. On your part as a governor, on a scale of 1 to 10, how do you think state governors have fared in managing security in the state?
Thank you very much. Let me appreciate this very wonderful topical issue that has been discussed in NTA today, and again for inviting me to partake. I am a governor in one of the federating units, and you talk of role of governors. Yes, I belong to the forum called Nigerian Governors Forum, but we are 36 in numbers in the particular forum that is representing each of the federating units. Speaking today as a governor, I will speak on my behalf and on behalf of Kogi State and what I have been able to do and where the challenges are. It is not necessarily going to reflect the views of all the governors or reflect the performance of all the governors, or speaking on behalf of the forum. Yes, today we are faced with a lot of challenges. Let me put it here that security challenges varies from state to state. Yes, we call it banditry today across the country, armed robbery, and what have you. It varies in the sense that the characters, the elements that perpetrate these acts of crimes and criminalities may not necessarily be homogeneous. However, myself as a governor today that is responsible to maintain law and order, to secure lives and livelihood, is living up to the expectations of the people. First, I'm elected to protect lives and livelihood. And who or how do I go about the whole this exercise? When I assumed office, I studied the environment, the security environment. Of course, it is what we knew before we contested and we were elected, that there are insecurity in the land. And we mapped out how we are coming to tackle it. What you see from outside is different from what you experience when you come inside. It is easy to say, oh, put this together, write a beautiful article, review literatures, refer to history,
It's a different
policies that have been formulated, but it's a different ballgame when you are seated in that office. You will have to begin to learn on the job and apply solutions as they come. The only thing I can say is that every governor is doing his best to ensure that his state is secured. You see, even as a father, head of a family, if your home is not at peace, you can never have a smooth sleep. If you're at work, you can't concentrate. Even if you're driving, you can't concentrate. So, as a head of every state, we are very concerned about ensuring that there's peace and tranquility. Now, when I came on board, I discovered that various security agencies were working at cross purposes. No synergy, no intelligence sharing. As at 27th of January 2016 when I assumed office. So, all I initially began to do was to ensure that all the head of security agencies and all the agencies that are operating for my state, from the police, army, navy, civil defense, DSS, and the local vigilantes, all came together. We were able to come up with one strategy, unity and harmony among ourselves. So, for instance, now there's an arrest that needs to be carried out somewhere. Before what's happening, maybe an agency is being reported to. Before the agency will get there, another one has carried it out. Where is the suspect? The suspect might either be charged to court or he's been freed or whatever. All sorts of things. So we're able to put all of this together. And then, putting some other infrastructures together, like equipping the police. We did that when I came on board. Putting some basic infrastructures like roads, buying gadgets, security gadgets, to support the real security agencies. And also identifying some elements that are, let me say, derailing the efforts of the security agencies, within the system. Because I ensure that I opened my line for the general public to be able to reach me. And I pick calls directly. If you see overnight, you see me online or WhatsApp almost all the time, reacting, reading, and responding to threats, calls, and reports. And none of these head of security agencies that have ever worked in Kogi State will tell you that he has 24-hour sleep. Because if I, as the head of the security, chief security officer, is not sleeping, you will not sleep. If I call you once, twice, you do not pick, an incident happens, you do not respond, appropriately, satisfactorily, then you're on collision course with me. And that we are able to handle in Kogi State, and we are recording the successes we are recording, today. So, basically, as chief security officer, my role to protect lives and livelihood, I carried out effectively, and I believe that others are doing theirs too. Yes, there are challenges. And these challenges, it's dynamic. Every day, these criminals wants to be, one step ahead of you. And as a responsible government, we are always a step ahead of them. Most times, you see some challenges or maybe one attack or the other. In every one unfortunate incident, we would have foiled more than 10 as far as Kogi State is concerned. And I'm sure other states are doing theirs too. I can, for instance, now give you an example of, Plateau State. When my brother, Governor Along, came on board, before he came on board, we used to know the kind of communal clash, herders-farmers clash that used to occur in Plateau State. I don't think the same is this situation today. It will evolve from there to another. And let me tell you one other challenge we are facing as a government, or let me say myself. Aside solving these physical challenges you see, some of them are induced politically, not necessarily economical, or just because for the crime's sake.
some of them are induced politically, from within and from outside. Certain actions you may want to take sometimes, and when you trace it to certain, influential citizens of this country, then you're helpless. But in Kogi State anyway, I've never been helpless, except I don't have the required resources to carry it out. Because from day one, I made sure that I informed everybody who cared to listen that look, as a governor, I have no any special interest other than to protect lives and livelihood. Even if my brother, that is involved in act of crime and criminality, I will deal decisively with such a person. And when we started the fight against crimes and criminality for 9 senatorial districts, from Kogi Central, from Okene specifically, and I handled those criminals with iron fist, then every other senatorial district and every other person high up there knows that look, this guy means business, and majority of them left. So these are the things we face as a governor.
Okay, Your Excellency, let's dwell a little bit about solutions as you're talking about what you've been doing as a governor, giving the constitutional provision to you and your colleagues as chief executives of states and of course chief security officers. You've laid down some of the things you've been doing, but still, if I may go back to Tamla and then borrow some other things, he said when you talk about transportation, for instance, specifically, which may be just an item on the table talking about security, states in Nigeria hardly have, a uniform, colors for taxis and buses, for instance. Only very few you can count up. And then the issues of unemployment, for instance, and the issues of social services being provided to the people, and some other issues that may be, reasons for people to indulge in crimes and continue with them, and even abet them like the transportation system. How far has your state gone in that, being the chief executive officer? We should talk about the challenges much more later.
Okay. You see, transportation, like I said, it is easy to speak from outside, but when you're inside, it's a different ballgame. Yes, I met a system whereby, especially from Lokoja, we have various parks, private parks everywhere. But today we've been able to unify all of that. I inherited a modern park from my predecessor that was built but was never used. We put them to use now. Every transporter must go operating from that particular park as we speak. Road infrastructure, uniform, the transportation system. You see, the economic situation we met on ground. When you come on board and you have 100 naira, there are several demands. The demands of that 100 naira will be over 1,000 naira equivalent. So, which will you attend to? Which will you not attend to? It will really depend on how you prioritize. And in prioritizing, is not just a one-man show. We ensure that when we came on board, we commissioned a team called New Direction Blueprint Team, who went around the entire state to hear from the people what they would want this administration to do for them. We are able to compile all of these requests into volumes 1, 2, 3, and 4. We have our blueprint as we speak right from first term. And this is where we download annually to form our budget, consulting the people again. And the people elect you from the rural to the urban. And they tell you that this is what they want. You aggregate it. You apply some scientific method to really determine what will satisfy the people largely. My brother, that was why my first time we concentrate more
in the rural areas because they were largely neglected, infrastructurally and otherwise. So we may not talk of, okay, providing uniform vehicle for taxi drivers or car riders and what have you. We will provide that. Where is the resources of the state that we use to provide all of this? Now, these people that we inherited or that we are governing, they are really living below poverty. Would you mandate them or force them to go and get uniform vehicle? And then financial institutions will help matters as well. Approach them to invest. Then they will tell you to go and probably bring your great-grandfather as surety or guarantee for you to be able to provide that for them or for the state. And my brother, I invested in transport before, and I know what transportation is. You can't guarantee a driver that, okay, I'm giving you a brand new vehicle and then we pay back within so time. It is not as easy as that. So looking at this plethora of demands and requests, how do you guarantee that? Now, to say that, there is lack of job or because there are different vehicles or colors of taxis and what have you, it's a recipe for, it's an excuse for any crime. There's no reason for any crime at all whatsoever. Nobody should ever commit crime because of one reason or the other. No. Because Rome is not built in a day. We can't all of a sudden provide that ideal everything that people come to the television or to the media and say at all times. But it is a gradual process. You solve this problem, another one arises. You tackle it, another one will arise. That is governance for you. That is generally life. When you wake up in the morning, you may be thinking this is what you're going to do, but there will be exigency sometimes, and you'll have to forgo certain plan that you have, and then make sure that you solve it. If you don't, then you can be consumed.
Indeed, Kogi, I've still don't stay to before we bring in the other guests to come to bring in their contributions. Kogi is a strategic state in the Federation, the confluence state. It is the point where you move from the north to the south. And in recent days, recent times, we've heard of criminals moving from the north to the south, from the south to the west. Let's talk about your synergy with other state governments in order to scale down this passage of criminals from the north to the south and the south to the west. What have you been doing as governors coming together to ensure that you bring it down to the barest minimum?
Well, thank you very much. This is a very, very key, you mentioned this so that the whole world will see exactly the position we are occupying in this country. We are actually the real center of this nation. We have the highest number of borders with 9 states, FCT making it 10. You talk of synergy. Yes, I have very wonderful relationship with all of my neighbors, including FCT. And the security challenges in all of these various states and that of Kogi State all differ. We may call it banditry attack in one state today. It may take one form. It may take the other form when it comes to my state. When we assume, let me tell you, when we assumed office, we identified who those guys are. Then we began to ensure that we take them out. Majority of them ran out of Kogi State to the neighboring states. I had to take the permission of the Commander-in-Chief, Mr. President, to help talk to the various service chiefs to give me that cooperation and understanding. My dear sister, we do even cross borders to go and arrest criminals from other neighboring states. In fact, sometimes we go as far as Kaduna State, Port Harcourt, Bayelsa, Lagos, any other states to arrest kingpin of these criminals. And we are able to bring that incident to the barest minimum.
There are a lot of challenges in all of this because most of these people, most of the vehicular movement, more than 85% will pass through Kogi State to the south and from south to the north, just like you mentioned. And some of them sometimes hibernate. But nobody is ever written on his forehead that this is a criminal until he or she began to exhibit such character or trait. But because we made Kogi State so hot for them, so majority of them will not stop over and then they will cross. That was why in Kogi State today we don't have any camp. We can't have any kidnappers then that we can't checkmate. Or a camp that is called, just like you have Sambisa or maybe somewhere that you know that this is the camp, the region of kidnappers or bandits, and then you allow them to fester. It's not possible. But you find them in some other neighboring states all around us, and there's an extent to which you can cross border to go and deal with these elements. As colleagues, we normally compare notes, and then in most cases, almost all the cases, they give me cooperation and understanding in carrying out this exercise. But let me tell you, my sister, that insecurity as we have it today in Nigeria is hydra-headed. It is not what a governor alone, or even president alone, or local government chairman alone will be able to sit down and think that you can solve it on your own. It requires all hands to be on deck, including politicians, traditional rulers, captains of industry. Fighting insecurity is capital intensive. Sometimes it is being bandied in the media that security vote. Let me speak for myself. The sacrifices I am making as a governor, I don't want to rate myself too high, but probably after my service, then Kogi States and Nigerians will come to appreciate what I've been able to do and pass through. Look, with little or even no any other support from anywhere, I don't think that you've heard of any special military hardware deployed to Kogi State to assist us. There's no any special fund from anywhere to assist us. No any donor agency have been able to say, okay, Kogi State, you are strategic. Let us assist you. You're doing well. No any corporate citizen of this country, some that are making most of their fortunes from Kogi State, has ever said this is our contribution tangibly to our fight against insecurity. In 2020, we renewed the State Security Trust Fund. And I did call on our corporate citizens and all well-meaning citizens of Kogi State and Nigerians to contribute. It will interest you that since year 2020, now 2022, all we've been able to realize is just 5.8 million in that account, created just for that purpose. Meanwhile, billions, if not trillions, are taken away from the state in terms of solid minerals and others, trade and investment from the state. They were spending the little resources that were able to generate and receive as envelope from the federation account, paying salaries, infrastructure, fighting this insecurity. When any expatriate is kidnapped, the whole burden is on me as the governor, or is on the state as a state government. Meanwhile, that expatriate is working in a multi-trillion naira investment or company, yet no one single contribution towards fighting crimes and criminality in the states. So these are the challenges we are facing as a state, but we're soldiering on. And I know surely that we're
wish you all the best to Excellency. At least one can see the efforts you're making. We will talk much more about the issues you raised, talking about security bills, talking about contributions for security, and talking about some other efforts you've really made in trying to secure, Kogi State. Let's come to Kabir Adam. We then look at constitutional provisions in this regard, because instances are that state governors oftentimes, run to the presidency, go with cap in hand and questions and queries, and the rest have been talking about how do you tackle insecurity in our own states. The president, the governors, and the local government chairman are all elected, bearing the provisions of the constitution, and of course they are chief executives in their own right. The president is the commander-in-chief, and then the state governors are chief security officers in their states. And we look at also the paraphernalia or the agencies, security agencies, and how they, synergize in order to see to it that the country is secured. You find that the governors at a certain point in time are being put on one side, being that they did not really have much say in who becomes the commissioner of police and who becomes the IGP, for instance. But they preside over security council issues. That may be the reason why they rush to the center, asking the president to do one or two things. At a point, I think I can remember one of the president's chat on the Rise TV, I think he gave example of two states that came to him and then talking about insecurity. Then he asked them to go back and sort things out for themselves there. Is there a problem here in the Constitution, given the roles of the president and the governors as regards solving or tackling insecurity?
Yeah, thank you. I described it earlier on as the constitutional lacuna. And I think specifically it has to do with one agency within the security architecture, and that's the military. To a larger extent, and His Excellency will correct me if I'm wrong, the ability to interact and manage or influence the other agencies is much more higher than the military, as an example. And because it's Mr. President is the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, in certain instances the governors would need his approval and his mandate to ask the military to conduct certain actions. In most instances, if I remember well, when the governors come to Mr. President, it has to do with perhaps the deployment of the military in matters that have reached a point where the military's presence is required. So you recall, for instance, when the governor of Niger State came to see Mr. President because of the terrorism challenge he had in his state. Not too long ago, the governor of Kaduna State wrote to Mr. President alleging that there is a parallel government in his state, also something to do with the military. So I think that is where perhaps the issue is. But beyond that, and I'm glad that you brought this question up, have an expanded National Security Council that includes governors because of the level of insecurity that we have in the country. The president and governors and several other layers of leaders are our leaders. And it sometimes, especially as a security specialist, it worries us when we hear some governors speaking in a manner that, is disparaging and that creates division within the country. So we thought that them being in a platform, a closed platform, where they tell each other the truth and come out with a united front so that Nigerians are able to rally around that united front. As against going on media platforms and, speaking things, I don't want to give examples, but there are certain, governors, unfortunately, that have become quite, for lack of a better word, notorious for going quickly to the media and making statements that are a little bit divisive. So perhaps coming to those councils in a closed door, discussing those issues, and then coming out with a united front. Because at the end of the day, you sit down, you jaw, and you come out with a compromise position. And then we as Nigerians will rally around that compromise solution. So that's the part of the reason. And I must say that those councils have not been sitting the way they should be sitting. Perhaps it's only recently that the National Security Council, I think in July, it sat up for about 3 times. But the Police Council, as an example, if I'm right, it hasn't sat for quite a while. The National Defense Council too. So again, that's another platform that I think is absolutely important, where the role of the governors would be imputed and it will be more meaningful in terms of both policy and strategy. The second point is at the National Assembly level. And I know the listener may be a little bit surprised while I'm bringing in National Assembly. That's where 3 aspects of governance takes place: legislation, budget, and then oversight functions. And you will agree with me that perhaps at the Senate, there are 3 members of the Senate from virtually every state. And the governors have enormous influence most times, not all the times. Sometimes there are differences from a political, and His Excellency actually alluded to it earlier on. And then at the House of Rep, there are also several members. The reason why I brought this up, now imagine if a governor wants a constitutional revision perhaps, or a legislation, it will be very easy because of the relationship he has with these persons. If they go at the level of the governors forum, they come together. We've been talking about security, and part of the challenge in security in Nigeria is the centralized nature of security. So what if governors agree among themselves that they want a decentralized security? How easy would it be to achieve it through the National Assembly? Then come to budgeting. His Excellency talked about the fact that the trust fund has not been able to generate a lot of money. What if, for instance, through this budgetary rule of the National Assembly, the governors influence the legislature to achieve a certain objective that they want? So I'm bringing all of this to show that there are various ways with which the governors can influence the outcome of security from a strategic point of view, not, for instance, from at their level, at the state level. And so there are several ways to go about it. If we come back to your question, it would take a lot of strategy. It would take the infrastructure the governor decides to adopt. Do you have a commissioner, as an example, responsible for security? Do you have a special advisor? If you have a commissioner or a special advisor, what criteria did you use in appointing that person? Does he have the requisite knowledge to assist you in carrying out the security mandate that you have? Because you are a governor, and like His Excellency alluded, there are competing demands and interests. So it's right to assume that security is just one of those interests, but it's a primary interest. And so I recently have had cause to look at several states. Unfortunately, I didn't look at Kogi, but I must be, in terms of metrics, because I run a consultancy too, and one of the things we do is we keep data. And Kogi has been doing quite well. 2013, 2015 was very worrisome in Kogi. But since His Excellency assumed, the metrics have shown a great reduction in terms of the number of fatalities and incidents that Kogi has been recording. So I must say that what His Excellency has mentioned is actually working. If we look at metrics, number of deaths, number of kidnaps, and other things. But beyond that, we must also look at some of these things I've mentioned: the infrastructure, the strategy, because all that matters is sustainability. His Excellency at a particular time will leave that position. What has he left, in terms of infrastructure and strategy that his successor will carry on? And so those are the kind of things that I think hopefully.
Talking about being the chief security officers of the state, would you say the call for state policing is about time?
I am an advocate of the decentralization of security, and I'm choosing my words very carefully here. I believe in the decentralization of security, because frankly, security is local. If we don't localize security, we're not going to get out of these woods that we're in at the moment. But how do we decentralize security? And I think that is the major thing. How do we democratize the states? How do we make sure the kind of checks and balances that we aspire as the nation, which we're currently advocating at the federal level, we're also able to achieve it at the state level? That is the kind of decentralization I would hopefully want to see. A decentralization where the governors are able to wield the kind of influence that would achieve the purposes for which they are elected. If we just create state police without decentralizing security, we're not going to get the kind of objective. I alluded earlier on to certain governors who are very easily come out in public and make very disparaging statements. Now imagine in such a situation where ethnic profiling has already happened, stigmatization has already happened, and then you make that governor, you decentralize police and you make him the chief executive of 27 ministries, departments, and agencies in security. All he's going to do is ask those 27 to go after that ethnic group that he thinks are responsible for whatever security challenge. So we need to create structures at the state level that will be able to check certain excesses. It is at that point I think we can decentralize security. Second element is funding, and I think His Excellency mentioned that the way we are going at the moment, perhaps because of the constitutional arrangement that we have, I do not think many states can support a decentralized security structure. So that too we'll have to look at before we decentralize security. So yes, I'm an advocate, but there are certain things that would have to be done before we start talking about state policing.
Well, when we talk about police, state police here, just like an official word, making the whole thing official. But at the moment, I think most states have something similar to that. Regions and states. You see, you have issues like a JTF, the Hisba, the Amotikun, and the rest of them, all states that have been funded by the state. Now, let's hear from you, Jonathan Long, and then maybe get your, perspective on this issue. When we talk about this state police, and we look at how state governors, handle them through their security votes and their own, relationship with security agencies in their states. The security votes are votes that are just outside, audit, outside the Constitution, and of course outside any other, framework or parameter you can think of, but meant in order to cushion the effect of certain activities that could breach the peace in every state. Now, some states use this in order to cement relationship with security agencies. Some use it in order to finance this regional or state quasi-police, if I may use the phrase. Do you see that as, really justifiable? And of course, if yes, do you have to really look up to the presidency again for much more of security advice and security, support?
Thank you very much. One of the most challenging or disturbing aspect in Nigeria about our security or all our problems is that we are quick as trying to form or set up organizations or institutions to be able to see if an institution is failing. For example, we should be interrogating why the Nigerian police have not been able to perform their duties well at this time and see what we can do to make them functional. I did mention to you about the Sir Willing Commission report. That was if you read the report, it was a well-crafted report. Now, we want to set up bodies. The Rosenye panel has said that they should close some of those parastatals, including the road safety, if I'm not mistaken. That was created out of the Nigerian police. It was a traffic wing of the Nigerian police. Now, you want to create another system. I was at the National Conference in 2014 when the issue of state INEC came up. Everybody, including the advocates of state police, said it should be scrapped. That INEC should conduct elections because whatever party that is in power in any state that conducted election, that party won the local government elections 100%. And that if you give those parties or those governors the ability to have their own police force and to have their INEC to carry out those functions, then you have problems. Well, and that's why I think we need to interrogate these things. Now, there is what you call the police council, and each governor is a member of that council. even the appointment of the Inspector General of Police, if I'm not mistaken, is supposed to go through that council. I don't know whether it has been properly used. Now, somebody advocating that the governor should come into the National Security Council, I said no. And I will say definitely no. The National Security Council is a well-crafted and thought after, and is looked at in terms of what the functions of that council is. Now, if you look at the American Constitution or the American model of federalism that we're practicing here in Nigeria, in America, the states are the ones that came together to form the center and gave some powers to the center. Even at that, when there are problems in the state governor approaches the federal government to declare a state of emergency in that area so that they can be able to deploy federal resources to be able to tackle that, including the armed forces. Now, when you want to control the armed forces, even the police, you should give direction. Even when they say the president is commander-in-chief of the armed forces, the Constitution gives him that latitude to delegate an officer, and that's where you have a chief of defense staff and the rest. They are the ones who carry out the day-to-day running and control and command and control of the armed forces. You want a governor to command the military unit in his area. You want a governor to command the police. He should give them this thing. They are professionals. Give people assignments and don't tell them how to do it. That is the concept that will move away to the mission command system now. But you give a person an assignment, task him, but don't tell him how to do it. Let him use his initiative. Let him use his professional training to achieve that test. So what is happening today is that we want to give people assignments, we want to tell them how to do it. It doesn't work that way. We are stifling initiative, we are stifling professionalism. I think we need to look at it. There is a council of state where all the governors are there, and they can approach and table any security matter there that is missing. And what is missing, and I see that is missing seriously, which I've been advocating, is that there is lack of peer review mechanism by the governors. They don't go on state visits. Governors used to go on state visits. The governor of Northwest State in those days went to Sokoto, Kano State for a state visit, 5 days. And there was a peer review mechanism. He saw what Abuja did, Bagauda Dam and the rest, and the irrigation of the Chalawa Dam and the rest. He went back to Sokoto and did the same. Joseph Gomo late went to Midwest State and met Ogumudia there. He saw the transport system. He saw the newspapers, Observer newspaper, and there and then the Midwest agreed to establish the Benue Plateau lines and the Nigerian standard, which is still there today. You know, really used to visit Solomon Lar here. Solomon Lar used to visit Kano. They carry out peer review. They see how people are doing their things. Today the peer review is done in Abuja. Let's call a spade by his name. The peer review is done in Abuja. I've never seen any governor come on a state visit here. And when they come on visit, they visit and see what you are doing. Ask questions, interact with the officials in those areas and see what they can take. What are those things they can take along with them? And then the other people will say, look, we are doing same. If you do it this way, I think you will get a better result. We are living in a federation. We are not even in the world now, it's a global village where whatever happens, look, the crisis in Ukraine now has affected the price of bread and wheat and the rest. Famine all over. So you can't sit down and say Ukraine is about how many thousand kilometers away from Nigeria. So what is happening in Kogi will definitely have an effect on Plateau. What is happening in Maiduguri or in Borno State will have an effect in Kogi. We found out that even the bombing, the origin was not even from the stigmatized or the stereotyped tribe. And that is the danger. So I think you need to see a situation where we need to interrogate why our institutions are not working. I've said it time without number. You need to put more boots on ground in terms of the police. And while you are adding those numbers, if you look at in a state, how many policemen are there? Yet when you want to conduct election, the IG tells you that he's moving 40,000 policemen, 30,000 policemen to that state. For goodness sake, if he moves 40,000 policemen or 30 to Ocean State, it means those are the number of policemen that are required to police Ocean State. So we should aspire to have 30,000 policemen in each state, or if not in states like Kano and Lagos, you need even twice. So we need to interrogate and come to a situation where we can do some of these things. Decentralizing security is perfect. In any case, security is decentralized. We are the ones who have even centralized it. If we are doing what we are supposed to be doing at our level, look, registration of vehicles, is it the federal government matter? Thank God I saw a local government chairman in Ida, I was still in Kogi, as a credit to Kogi State, who came out to the road and were arresting commercial vehicles, even state local government numbers, to avoid being stopped. Today you see vehicles with their plate numbers, their number plates covered with black. What are those things for? Who are those? Nobody should be above the law. It's only the governors and the president that should wear a coat of arms, or the speaker a coat of arms on their number plates. The rest of it should not be covered. Why are they hiding? Why are they hiding? Those are some of the things that the criminals use. If you go down, the motorcycles that they use, the bandits use in transportation, 90% of the motorcycles in all the states are not numbered. They are not registered. And they are what the politicians give us at our people like, during our West period, they were giving bicycles. Now they are giving motorcycles and cars. And those vehicles are not, those motorcycles are not numbered. And those are the things that are being used for criminality. So, criminality is something that has to be stopped from the basic. These building blocks must start from the basic. If you don't do that, rocket science will never solve it. So I think we need to go back to the basic and start looking at what we must do from the community level to the local government level to the state level, what we should do at our own. And once we do that, the federal assistance that we require will come in to be able to solve that. It's not rocket science. In fact, banks today have all outsourced their transportation system. What stops the states looking at some of those models to have transportation systems that have colors? Today, everybody is, how do you control it? On Good Morning Nigeria here, we had somebody tell you that you have about 14 million motorcycle people and there is no linkage between them and government. 14 to 20 million. What sort of security risk is that? How can we continue living in that sort of situation that you and the mode of transportation of bandits is the motorcycles, medium boat, and yet you have about 14 to 20 million of those vehicles not having any link or registration with the government and the rest? I think we need to up our game.
Yes, indeed, Brigadier General Tamlang, you've raised some pertinent questions, and I believe our guests in the studios will address it as the program begins to wind down. But we need to take a break right now. When we return, our conversation will continue. Do stay.
Welcome back. You're watching Good Morning Nigeria, and this morning we're talking about the role of state governance in national security. We have our guests seated here, and then of course one of them is His Excellency the Governor of Kogi State, and our regular here, Dr. Kabir, and of course General Tamlang. Let's start this segment with you, Your Excellency, and then touch on that issue. A lot of your peers would not want to touch on. That's talking about the security votes. When we talk about security votes, a lot of people feel as if it's a free lunch, it's a free money, it's money not accounted for. As I asked Tamlang much earlier before the break, and a lot of you governors use the money in trying to cement relationships, and then with the security agencies. Some of you buy gadgets and security gadgets for them, some vehicles. And then a lot more is being done in order to finance, most especially the quasi-police outfits you have, if some of you do have them. But this money range from maybe 80 million naira in a month to about 1.5 billion naira in a month, depending on the state and the magnitude or gravity of the insecurity in that state. Talking about Kogi, and talking specifically about your peers and how you think this money is being spent, is it really justifiably spent as regards these issues, and do you think it's still a work in progress as far as security is concerned?
Thank you very much. Before I come into this issue of a security vote, let me quickly just, touch on the earlier comment by my brother Kabir Matu and Kabir Adamu and General Temlong.
Yeah.
You see, like I said, every state face various challenges. And I will speak for myself. Like I said, if you noticed, ever since I came on board, despite the challenges I met, which my brother here, adduced to that, what the security situation were before I assumed office on 27th January 2016, very up there, and were able to reduce it. I have never for once run to Mr. President to come to my rescue. I have reasons to run to him. But why am I elected as a governor? Why am I a leader? Why are the people looking up to me? First, in fact, why am I a man in the first place? A man is made to face challenge and solve the problem. So, but there are challenges.
I'm not cutting you short here, just a minute.
Okay.
When you say you didn't run to him, some of your colleagues who ran to him, they do that under the guise of not really being the real chief executives, talking about, ordering the police commissioner in the state or the brigade commander or whatever to come to their rescue in certain instances. You look at the case of Kaduna and some other place.
I appreciate God Almighty, Mr. President, President Muhammad Buhari, and the various security outfits we have in the country. I came out with clean hand from day one, that I have no any other interest. So if you are from my religion or my tribe or my political party or whatever you are, and you are close to me, and you are found wanting, or you are involved in one crime or the other, you face the music. The security heads I met on ground, who were at each other's throat before or working at cross purpose, and I was able to bring them together. Those who are unwilling to come to terms with the new reality, the new order of unity and working for one purpose, I was able to get rid of them. The appreciation I'm appreciating God Almighty and the Commander-in-Chief is that he was able to talk to all the service chiefs to give me listening ear and to ensure that whatever I do to secure, whatever I want to do to secure lives and livelihood, they give me the support. And that was enough for me from the beginning. And that has been working for me. Thank God, every head of security agencies posted to Kogi State would know that you will meet a culture different from where you're coming from, where you have to key into our security architecture and work together. So I have no reason to go to Mr. President. Those who may go to him probably have their own reason. Like I said, I can't speak for them. In terms of peer review mechanism amongst we, the governors, we do a lot of peer review mechanism. You see, it is not necessarily in those times of J.S. Taka, these times of Governor Solomon Lar, thank God General Temlong said we're in a global village now, where if a pin drops in your house, in the hinterland, those at the coast will hear immediately. We don't need to engage in some of these physical visits, even though it is necessary, it is good. And we do it sometimes. We may not necessarily come to the media to come and be reporting that this is what we do. I know a couple of my colleagues who have called me to ask, how did you cope the incident of tertiary institution strike in your state? And I did explain to them what I did. And they were shocked. Some of them adopted some of our styles, and then they're having a free, a civil educational curriculum, just like we have in Kogi State today. And I did have a cause to call some of my colleagues, especially in the area of IGR. I knew very well then that I had to compare notes with former Governor Ambode. I knew I had to compare notes with former Governor Willie Obiano. I knew I had to compare notes with former Governor Ahmed of Kwara State and host of others. So there is serious, peer review mechanism that are going on. So we may not necessarily come out to be, broadcasting exactly what to do. When we meet at NGF, PGF, and these various other fora, you can just bring out very few highlights, that you address the press with. Now, come to issue of security votes. How much billions? Like I said, let me take it this way. My brother, Lad Kabir, did mention about what the security situation were in Kogi State. I always refer to Kogi State and what it is today. Now, there are several activities that are being carried out that any governor will come out to the public and say it. Or any responsible government will come out to say, this is what I've done to prevent, because we have to first of all deter. We have to prevent certain incidents from happening. Physical harm to the body, or something that will happen on political space that can cave in the whole system. Certain actions will need to be carried. So, how much would you quantify monetarily when you talk of saving one life? You can't place premium. We have seen what happened in the Kaduna Abuja train, where bandits have earned or made over 2 billion on this unfortunate incident. If Governor El-Rufai come to the probably had spent, let's say, 10 billion in a day to secure the rail track and prevent that incident from happening. And peradventure, maybe one of his political opponents lay hands on the record that, Governor El-Rufai spent 10 billion naira in one day for so reasons, or maybe on security, because security is security. On security, oh my God, Nigeria would have been calling Governor El-Rufai all sort of names. But that could have been spent to prevent the incident, the unfortunate incident. Aside the money, the lives that were gone, how much has the train lost within this period? The torture, the psychological trauma that these families and Nigerians went through within this period. Can you quantify it monetarily? You can't. That's why I said it is easy to say a lot before you get into the office, or by those who are not in the office. But when you're in there, it's a different kettle of, fish. Today, Mr. President is being accused, our party is being accused, insecurity. So let me tell you, what Mr. President has done and what he is doing to keep the country and the nation together, united, to keep it prosperous, to keep it going, to prevent daily bombing in this country, though it has taken a different dimension of banditry and kidnapping and what have you. You can't compare it. You can't imagine what this president is going through. These various incidents that are happening in other states today, what every governor passed through, nobody will come and tell you that this is what I've passed through. Because there are certain informations, there are certain statements you can make to the general public. you create panic. The system can collapse. If God forbid, for instance, now, if Governor El-Rufai had come out that day that, look, I have intelligence, the bandits want to strike train, and this and this is going to happen. The panic, the trouble it will create, and you know how many of such he has prevented in the past. Nobody is will come out to tell you. But one incident will make a whole lot of noise in the media. Yes, and then when you're now comparing it with how much is being spent on vote, I mean, it is paltry. Let me put it that way. I am talking for myself. Anyway, Kogi. It is paltry. It's a paltry. It is like a drop of water in an ocean compared to what we do to ensure that lives and livelihoods are secured in the state. So these are the things. Then these security agencies, let me tell you, my dear brother, and Nigerians who care to listen to me, that this insecurity we are talking of and then overhyped, and what have you in this country today, 90% is political.
Okay. Yes, you said so.
And let me tell you, if we really want to tackle it, oh my God, a lot of toes will be stepped on.
Which you recently did,
yes.
Because the law said the building block must start from the base. Recently, you suspended a traditional ruler and a chairman over security breach in their domain.
Yeah. Let me tell you,
we're not afraid of the political impact.
Not everybody is GYB. Not everybody is Yahya Bello. Yahya Bello is a different breed. And I am ready to step on toes as many as possible, so long as it will protect lives and livelihood of my people. My politics does not, it is as shallow as that. So whoever is ready to bring the peace and security of our people, I am ready to step on that too. Not only stepping on the toe, I am ready to destroy that too, in order that the lives and livelihood of the majority of the people are secured. What we are witnessing today is politics and long decay in the system. We are evolving. The world is evolving technologically and what have you. But I'm sorry to say we still have some leaders who are still living in the past and they're afraid of the future. They're comfortable in the past or in the present state they are. They're not ready to take risk. They're not ready to trust. They can't trust because unfortunately they couldn't mentor those to take over the mantle of leadership from them. So when the world was moving, they stayed back. And then that affected a lot, including the security architecture. So Mr. President, is doing his best. A situation where a lot of servicemen that are so brilliant, that would have added a lot of value to the system, were retired prematurely because of certain reasons. A system where you refuse to arm, equip, train your security services for certain reasons over how many decades?
Period of time, really.
So what magic would you want President Muhammadu Buhari to do immediately now to bridge all this gap? And so far so good is on record. After how many decades? It is in this administration that President Muhammadu Buhari was able to acquire some hardwares. And some of these hardwares are basic when you compare them to some other climes. Then what would you say to a situation where some of these leaders will now convert the whole of what Mr. President do in order that things are properly into politics, and then everybody now jump on that? So these are the situations we are facing today. And some of those that are still in the service are loyal, their allegiance are still to those that are out there who didn't do anything before today. Will Mr. President flush them out? What will he do? A situation where you have some top echelon in the service relating even, I'm sorry to say, relating with those that have relationship with another relationship down to the criminals. What would you do?
Okay.
So it will require a very decisive leadership.
And holistic approach to it.
Holistic approach, all hands on deck.
We're talking about
to take them out.
We're talking about solutions here, and that is precisely why we're here this morning. Let now say, I don't know whether if you can just round up, maybe in 30 seconds, if you could tell us the way out, just 30 seconds.
Thank you. My own way out, I will say it if you permit me, is just to be decisive.
Good.
That's it.
A decisive leadership, effective decisive leadership. Look, we must remove all the bad eggs from top down.
All right.
At leadership level, as it is right now, leaders, especially starting from President Muhammad Buhari and other governors and political leaders, we must close our ears to noise and do the needful.
And in 30 seconds,
carrying out operation in the theater can be painful, but at the end of the day, we're going to have a bounty benefit from it.
And in 30 seconds also, you talked about how you were able to, work on the relationship between you and the educational sector in your state, and you have a calendar that's working. In 30 seconds, what's your take on the FG ASU saga?
Well, I think let Mr. President or federal government, especially those that are delegated to sit with ASU, both of them should shift ground for each other. Because two wrongs cannot make a right. And then at the end of the day, the government should be decisive. Both should shift ground. At the end of the day, let the lecturers be humane enough, because the future of these children. When you talk of arrears, it can be paid, but how would you compensate with the time lost? You can put the whole academic calendar together. How would the children or the students assimilate and internalize it? So they should shift ground. Federal government as well should be able to meet up with their demands, and then whoever is unreasonable, I think let the government be decisive and ensure that the future of these children are saved.
Kabira, what's the way out in less than 1 minute?
Thank you. Earlier on, I referred to the peace and inclusive security initiative that the Governors Forum started precisely July last year. So about a year now that initiative has been ongoing. I think that initiative should be able to provide a framework, a policy direction, and perhaps even a mandate that the governors, 36 state governors that are members of that forum, can work with, so that at the end of the day we have better coordination between the federal and state government. The good news is that a desk has been established, and I think that desk is being funded by the Foreign and Commonwealth Office of the British government. So I hope that the governors appoint someone who has the capacity and capability to manage that desk and to allow for the development of both the framework and the policy that would enhance the coordination between the federal and state government, so that by the next time we have this conversation, we're able to hear from the Governors Forum how well they've done in terms. I believe in that initiative. I think it's a very good initiative. The root causes, the drivers of insecurity that we've discussed in the course of this conversation can be addressed by that PICSI initiative.
Okay, General Chamlang, in 30 seconds, can you give us an ideal situation that will ensure national security?
Thank you very much. I think what we need to do is to look at the all of society approach, all of government approach. Governors must be responsible for security. They must start the building blocks from this local, ward level, local level up to the states. Their governance must be seen to be governance, and they must be fair, firm to everybody and just. The rule of law must be in place so that nobody is seen to be above the law. And in that case, all those minor nitty-gritties that need to be done to create the security infrastructure that is needed to fight insecurity in this country should be done. And I thank you very much for this opportunity.
Okay, thank you so much, Brigadier General John Temlong, First Commander, Multinational Joint Task Force, former President of Alumni Association of National Defense College and Security Consultant. Thank you so much for your insightful contribution to the conversation. And the Executive Governor of Kogi State, Alhaji Yahya Bello, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, and Dr. Kabir Adamu, Security Risk Management Expert. As always, it's a pleasure.
Pleasure is mine. Thank you.
Let's take sports. We'll be right back.
Gbenga Ogunbote has returned to Shooting Stars for a third spell as head coach of the Ibadan club. The Nigeria Professional Football League outfit unveiled the experienced tactician at an elaborate ceremony at the Lekon Salami Stadium, Adamasingba, Ibadan on Monday afternoon. The Oluyole Warriors barely escaped relegation last season, which led to the dismissal of former handler of the side, Edith Olumide Agoy. Ogunbote left another MPFL side, Remo Stars, early this month after the expiration of his one-year contract. Ogunbote has been mandated to help the club pick a continental ticket next season. In boxing, a historic heavyweight unification fight between Tyson Fury and Alexander Usyk will be made, says the Britain's promoter Frank Warren. Ukrainian Usyk retained his WBA, WBO and IBF titles with a split decision win over Anthony Joshua on Saturday. This month, WBC champion Fury said he would stay retired. After Usyk's win, he said he would annihilate them both. Since 2007, the undisputed heavyweight championship has included the WBO title, and there has never been a fight where all four belts were on the line. After extending his unbeaten record to 20-0, Usyk said, "If I'm not fighting Tyson Fury, I'm not fighting at all." Although Joshua has now lost his belts, Warren said an all-British clash between Fury and Joshua could still happen down the road maybe.
Well, that's Good Morning Nigeria for today. Join us for another interesting edition tomorrow. I am Jumai. Yes, sir.
And I'm Yusuf Nadawusman. Thank you so much for coming along. Tomorrow is going to be another day for Good Morning Nigeria. See you.